My wife informed me at her sister's wedding that she had slept with the best man. The time frame is important here. We have been married for 3 years and were together as a couple for 2 years before that, so we've been together for about 5 years. 2 weekends ago, her sister got married, and of course, my wife was in the wedding party. She spent the 2 weeks prior to the wedding helping her sister get everything ready, which I was aware of and didn't mind. She took that Wednesday to Friday off of work to help and stayed with her sister for 3 days. I certainly know her sister, but I barely know the guy who is now my brother-in-law, having only met him a few times. However, he seems nice enough. I showed up on Saturday morning, a few hours before the ceremony, in hopes of stealing a few minutes to see my wife since I hadn't seen her since Tuesday. She saw me outside of her parents' house and sent her brother out to tell me that she would come out and see me at the car, which I thought was odd but went along with it. She finally came out, sat in the seat next to me, and gave me a kiss. Instead of acting happy to see me, she told me she needed to talk to me and didn't want to ruin her sister's day. She informed me that at the reception, if I still wanted to go, I might hear some things about the best man and her, and she didn't want it to be awkward or weird. I just sat there, stunned. She said that about 4 years ago, she had a fling with him and that it didn't mean anything, but she was aware that I am somewhat jealous by nature and wanted me to know in advance so I wouldn't be surprised. I told her I appreciated her telling me, and that it wasn't a big deal now. She went back into the house, and I went to eat lunch and decided to meet her at the church. As I was eating and reading my phone, it dawned on me that she said she had a fling with him 4 years ago, but we've been together for 5 years. My first reaction was to blow it off, thinking she just told me the wrong time. But the more I thought about it, the more I remembered about a year and a half into our relationship when she had a phase where she was really sketchy about her behavior, wasn't available when she normally was, and went on 2 weekend camping trips with friends from work. Of course, I was a little knotted up over this, but I knew I had a long day ahead of me. I went to the wedding, watched everything, and went through the receiving line to congratulate the bride and groom. My wife was standing with some other guy I didn't know, but the best man was there. I just went down the line and acted like no big deal. At the reception, it took forever for them to come because of photos. She finally got there and sat with me. I decided not to say anything as I didn't want to distract from the day. Instead of letting it go, she then told me that each of the groomsmen and bridesmaids were going to dance and that she was going to be dancing with him. I asked why, when she was not his partner for the party, and she said that the maid of honor and her partner were actually married and wanted to dance with each other. At this point, I was more than perturbed but tried not to let it show. Thankfully, I was smart enough not to drink because I know I'm an angry drunk. She talked to everyone around her, and then the dance came. He came over, extended his arm, and she got up. I tried not to watch and made a point not to. She came back with him in tow, and they were joking like the best of friends. She decided to introduce us, and while I didn't tell him to buzz off like I wanted to, my greeting to him was probably less than cordial. However, it didn't deter him from sitting and talking with her for a few minutes. The more they sat and talked and reminisced about old times, the madder I got. Eventually, I got up and went to the bathroom. When I came back, he was gone. She told me that she thought I was rude, which was not what I wanted to hear at the moment. I told her that this wasn't the time or place to talk about it, but we would talk later. She said she was going to change clothes and then tell her sister that we were leaving because I had ruined her day but didn't want me to ruin her sister's day as well. I told her that I was perfectly capable of not being a bother to her or her sister for the rest of the day and that I did not want to be the cause of any drama, so I preferred to stay. She went and changed clothes and came back in a huff. I had not said a word to her and even shook the other guy's hand. I guess I just looked miserable, so she based her opinion on that. She was adamant about not staying, so I said that if she really wanted to go, we could go, but if she would rather stay, I would be happy to stay, or since I came in my own car, I would leave so she could stay. She first said we should stay, but then said if I couldn't act any better, I should leave. I asked how I was acting, and she said it was obvious I was trying to be like a silverback gorilla wanting to fight. I didn't know whether to laugh in her face or be offended. I went back in and sat down while she mingled with the other guests. I talked with her brother for a while but ultimately ended up back at our table talking with her grandma. We left at the same time, and I arrived home just before she did. I was sitting in the living room waiting for her when she came in. I didn't beat around the bush and simply asked her to retell me the story about this other guy. She said it word for word like before. After sitting and looking at her for a time, I just asked, "Are you sure about the time frame?" She said she was. I then reminded her that we had been together for 5 years, so this fling was well over a year into our being together. What happened next I can't really put into words. Instead of being flustered or denying anything, she simply said, "I know." So I asked her to explain, and she told me that they worked together and it was just a physical thing. She felt like we weren't in a great place at the time and that she never had any feelings for him and never had any real intentions of leaving me. She just had some fun for a few weekends. She said it was probably a mistake on her part to tell me now, but she didn't want me to get blindsided. I didn't take this the way she thought I would. I guess we had a very large argument, which ended with her telling me I was being a child about all of this. She said we were married, this happened way before that, and our life together now has nothing to do with him or that time. Well, 2 things. 1, I adamantly disagree that this has no bearing on us. She cheated on me and doesn't even have the decency to feel guilty about it. 2, I hate being told I am childish when I get upset over something. It pisses me off to no end because that is her way of acting superior to me. I told her I needed time to think, and she told me there was nothing to think about. We love each other, and this didn't change anything. That was 2 weeks ago, and I am still not over it. She has been trying the past few days to get me to talk to her, but for whatever reason, I'm not viewing her the same as I did before this. Part of me thinks this is stupid. It happened a few years ago, and we are married now, and there haven't been any problems at all. But then part of me is like, I just found out she cheated on me, and it hurts like a motherfucker. What makes it worse is that instead of trying to understand how I feel, she is trying to guilt me into just not even thinking about it. Update: my wife informed me at her sister's wedding that she had slept with the best man. The maid of honor, not my wife, was married to the groomsman who my wife walked down the aisle with. Some people felt my wife was trying to arrange the dance, but I know for a fact that this part was legit. However, it doesn't mean she didn't try and offer to let them dance or any other form of manipulation. But I just wanted to clear that part up a little. There have been developments, but all they have done is make it harder for me to decide. Last week, I was mostly angry, then as the weekend progressed, I became mostly sad. I want to be able to hate her and flip that switch that tells me I'm being walked on and I'm a sucker, but it's just very hard for me to do that because I still love her, and this is ripping me apart. Here is what has happened of any consequence. She finally came to the realization that I was not going to just get over this. This then brought her to the realization that I might want out of the marriage. This then brought on a near nervous breakdown from her. Some people in my last post stated that she would try and manipulate me like that, and believe me, I was taking those words to heart when I thought she was having crocodile tears. But it soon became apparent to me that she wasn't acting or faking. She was having a legitimate panic attack. This led to an ER visit, an overnight stay in the hospital, new medications, and a scheduled follow-up with her doctor for later next week. This brought her family into it, and that in turn led to long conversations all the way around. When we got home with her family in tow, I asked what she wanted to do since there was a house full of people. She said she wanted to be with her mom for a while, which was fine with me as I had no desire to hang around all day with her dad or sister. So I said I was going to finish up something at work and would be home later. 2 hours after I got there, I received a text from her begging me to please come home and that she really needed me to talk with her. I finished up what I was doing and headed home. I was greeted on my own front porch by her dad, who asked if he could talk to me for a minute. My anger level was already somewhat high, but I was ready to go to war if she had dumped a sack of lies on me with her dad. I mean, it's not like he and I are best friends, but I've never had a bad moment with him, so I really wasn't going to be happy about being the bastard who broke his baby's heart. We sat on our deck chairs, and he floored me with his opening salvo. I was expecting to hear anything but what he said. He told me that she had told them what had happened, and he wanted to apologize to me because he felt like he did a really bad job as a parent. He said that this mindset that she had was really a creation of her mother's and that while he loved both of them, he said they were wrong. He had told his wife years ago that telling the girls that whatever happens before marriage doesn't count was a horrible idea and value system to instill in them. He then said that he wasn't there to stand up for what his daughter did, but he just wanted me to be aware that what she was saying and how she was acting was because she honestly believed that being married was an entirely different life and that they, her parents, had romanticized marriage to the point that she wasn't understanding real life. Basically, he was kind of throwing his wife under the bus, but again, this is not what I was expecting at all. We shook hands, and he said that no matter what I decided, he still thought very highly of me, which honestly made me feel really good for that moment. I then went inside, and my wife was curled up in a ball on her mom's lap. You could tell she had been crying the entire time I had been gone. Her mom got up, came, hugged me, and told me she was sorry, that she loved me, and that she was praying we could work this out. My wife was laid out on the couch at this point. Her mom and dad left, and she sat there looking at me and crying. Okay, this is where I'm going to piss off everybody and just tell you that I couldn't take it. I went to her, and we hugged for a long time, with her telling me over and over how sorry she was. Hey, I know it was the weak thing to do, but I have to say in my defense that just before this incident occurred, I loved her with all of my heart and would have done anything to not see her in pain. Whatever she had done, I still didn't want to see her like that. Look, it's very possible that she was putting on an Oscar-worthy acting job, but I don't honestly think so. She really seemed broken at that point in time. After a while, when she calmed down, I asked her what she wanted me to come home and talk about, and she said she wanted to get everything out in the open so I didn't feel like I was being lied to or manipulated. So she wanted me to ask her questions, and I wish I had written down a list, but I came up with a few off the top of my head. She was brutally honest with me, and some of the questions I asked I probably shouldn't have because now the mental image is stuck in there, but honestly, it was there anyway. I just now have confirmation. First, I asked for dates or at the very least approximate dates. I didn't tell her about the engagement concern I had because I didn't want her to change her story, and she remembered exactly when they occurred. Fortunately, this happened a little earlier in our relationship than she initially told me, so we were not engaged when this happened. I can't tell you what a relief that was because I became physically ill when I thought about that when someone mentioned it in my last post. Second, I asked how many times she went overboard with this because instead of just telling me how many different dates, she decided to tell me how many times there was intimacy. She wasn't doing it to be mean, she honestly thought that was what I wanted to know. This part of the conversation did not help me at all and in fact almost broke me down. In truth, it wasn't that often, and there were really only 3 different days that it happened, but there were several times during those 3 days. Then came the hard part. Why did she do it? Okay, again, I'm not the most manly of men, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but I couldn't get this out without starting to cry. I asked why I wasn't good enough. Why him? Why did she not just leave me? It was her turn to hold me because, at this point, everything came rushing at me. Her telling me having to watch them laugh with each other. Her now telling me how many times they did it and where they did it. She talked during this, but to this moment, I have no idea what she said. I was too upset, and honestly, nothing she was going to say was going to make a bit of difference anyway. But after I composed myself, I simply told her that the betrayal was horrible. But honestly, her response to me when I found out was just as bad, if not worse. She agreed with me and apologized for calling me immature. She said she honestly believed that it wouldn't matter to me now because we were married. When she said this, my blood started to boil again. I started to say something about it, but she jumped in and said that after talking with her parents, she now sees that this was very wrong of her and that cheating is cheating. But she still feels like the happiness we have shared since being married should count for something. I then replied that I kind of felt like that happiness was built on a lie. This led to another breakdown on her part and almost another ER visit, but between Ativan and having her breathe into a paper bag, we got her calmed down. I let her sleep the rest of the night, feeling like emotionally we were both tired. Come Sunday, we were talking again. By this time, I wasn't as sympathetic as I'd been when we got home from the ER. I told her that I thought her introducing him to me was crappy, me having to watch her dance with him was extra crappy, and the fact that she only told me because she was going to get caught was an elite level of crappy. I then demanded to know why she thought I would find out and how many people at the wedding knew besides me. Well, obviously the guy knew, but then his best friend in the world also knew. Did I mention that dude is now my brother-in-law? Which then led to her sister finding out, and she was afraid her sister was going to be the one to tell me. I asked how often she sees this guy, and she said that the wedding was the first time she had seen him in 3 years. Then I lost my shit and asked her if she left him during any of the lead up to the wedding. She got all pissy about it, acting like she wouldn't woohoo anyone because she was married, and I just lost my cool and had to leave for a while because once again, I felt like she was living on a different planet than the rest of us. I finally got cooled off enough to come home and try to be civil about things. She finally asked me what she could do to help me get past all of this, which may not sound like much, but it was the first time she offered to help me really, so it was at least a nice gesture. I told her I wasn't sure what she could do or if there was anything either of us could do and that I may never get over this. She said she wanted to help because she didn't want to see me in pain and that over the years, she hopes I'll be able to judge her based on who she is now. She would do anything I wanted to work this out. She also wanted to be sure that I knew that she had been 100% faithful since we've been married and would never cheat on her vows. I sarcastically thanked her, which I admit wasn't the most mature thing to do. I then asked for a moratorium on further talks until at least Wednesday. I have 2 projects I have to get done, and honestly, I'm just exhausted and have no clue what I want to do. I shift between periods of red-hot anger where I want to kick her out and then periods of deep emotional turmoil where I want to just forget this and move forward with her. Yes, I know this is not what anyone wanted to hear, and no, I'm not proud to type it, but it is what it is at the moment.